Hello to everyone. Thank you all for joining me at this time. My name is Shavi Zane, and I'm coming on to bring a message for you all in regards to a dream that I had and a lot of eye opening uploads that have been coming in. Okay. Now, I must say right off the top that many of the messages that I bring to you all comes from my Akashic records, okay? Me coming into remembrance of certain things. So I don't always have multiple books that I can reference. I don't always have multiple historic events that I can reference. I'm literally being given these messages and fed these messages through my awakening, okay? And as I continue to seek knowledge on an internal basis, these revelations come through. So it comes in forms of dreams. It comes in forms of, those moments, those like what they call aha moments where it's like, wow, I just put this together and I didn't even anticipate this answer coming to me. Or sometimes I might listen to someone else who has a wealth of knowledge and somehow I'm able to put the pieces together in terms of some of those things that have been coming to me intuitively. And so this particular message is in regards to the dream that I had, but then we're going to get into how this is a large part of what is happening right now in the world surrounding the uh, miniature sword. Okay, the miniature sword. Bear with me, y'all know what I'm talking about here. We got a lot of intelligent people that join me. And so that's what I'm going to call it just to prevent from having flags and all of that stuff. The miniature sword, okay? So I'm going to start off with the dream that I had. So in this particular dream, my children and I, we was outside of a shopping center, and they started running up and down the sidewalk, just playing as they do. I have a lot of small children, so they was running up and down the sidewalk. And once we bent the corner, right in the crevice in the corner of the store, shopping center, there was a woman standing in the corner. Now this woman, I want to show you all what she looked like just so that you can have a visual, okay? She was an older woman, though, and she was standing in the corner, and my children, they kept running into her, okay? Or at least that's what I perceived. They kept running into her. And, I was starting to get frustrated after like the third time of them running into this woman. Obviously I kept telling her, excuse me, I'm sorry, you have to excuse my children. They're just very excited. But she would never respond and say anything. So I assumed that maybe either she didn't speak English or that she was deaf, okay? But I didn't get the best vibe from her. I thought, well, maybe there's something wrong with her. And so, like I said, after like the third time of my children running into her, which I don't think my children realized they was bumping into her. They just thought they was running into a corner to play hide and seek, because the woman, she ended up walking away after my children bumped into her like the third time. She walked away, and somehow she reappeared. Okay, because after she walked away, I was like, okay, now I can just let them run freely. I don't have to worry about them bumping into this woman. Okay. And I'm still trying to find this card so y'all can have a visual of what this woman looked like, okay? Because she looked like the high priestess in the tarot deck, okay? She was wearing the same type of clothes, same exact color. Here it is. Same exact color, same type of clothing, except she was European, an old European woman wearing this type of gear without the extra headdress. Okay, she did have on a head covering that was attached to her clothes, just like this woman is wearing here, but she didn't have these these horns up here. Okay, and so I ended up, like I said, she walked away and she reappeared in this corner. But this time when she reappeared, I was frustrated more so with her, because I'm like, okay, at this point, it's clear that my kids is going to be running around. And here you are back in this corner again. But when she showed up, she reached out as I was walking past and she put like a book. It was some sort of book. It looked like a book to me. It was white. And she stuck it out. She stuck her hand out. And I was like, okay, what are you doing? You see me trying to walk past. So I grabbed the book and I tried to pull it from her. And she snatched back. And so I pulled again. And then I didn't end up with the book. She snatched back and poof, disappeared right before my eyes, okay? And a little further down in another corner, I saw another older woman who was dressed in the same gear, different color, but she stayed down there. She didn't bother me. So I ended up in another part of my dream, just like it's like I got catapulted into another part of my dream. And in this particular part, there was someone who had sent me a message through my Facebook Messenger. Now, this is someone who has had sessions with me before, private uh, readings done with me before in the past. And he also does music. Okay. And so he sent me a message through Messenger. I'm still in a dream, y'all. And the message contained a little note that he wrote. And he said, I really want to get a reading from you. But right now, me and my friend, we're trying to save $96 over the next 3 days. And he ended up sending me a clip of a music video that he had done. And so I clicked on the video, and there were Europeans with, I should have written this down prior so that you all can see an example. But there was, I can show you through my tarot deck because they're in here. There was Europeans with like the torches or the branding sticks that you would use like when you become a part of a sorority. If you all are familiar with that, those branding sticks. And it had a particular symbol. It had the pentagram inside of the symbol. But this pentagram was in reverse, okay? And so generally when you see the reverse pentagram, it usually means like the head of Baphomet. Some of them, many people associated with that. So this is the card that I pulled to give you all an example. So they was holding up these branding sticks, if that's the proper way to describe them, with this particular symbol. They was round and they had this symbol inside, but it was in reverse. Okay, so it looked exactly like this. So they was holding these up, and they was on this beach, and they ended up having in one hand the branding stick, and in the other hand they had the miniature swords. Okay, the miniature swords. Okay, these particular injections that they are giving out to the masses. Okay, so now you all understand what I'm saying when I say miniature swords. So they had the branding stick in one hand, the miniature sword in the other hand, and they was going around just sticking people. And all you could see laid out in the sand was all of these needles just everywhere. All these miniature swords was just everywhere in the sand. And they never actually used the branding stick on anyone. They never branded them with it. They was more concerned about having that as a symbolic. I feel like that was symbolic of what they was doing, what the miniature swords represented. Okay. And so moving on into the next phase of my dream, it was two women. One woman was getting ready. She was the boss. Okay. She was the manager of some sort of company, and she was getting ready to promote another woman who was standing next to her. So it was like this celebration, or this way of announcing that she was getting ready to be promoted. And so the woman was excited. The one that was being promoted was excited. And so her friend walked up to her, and she came to congratulate her. She was there to, give her acknowledgments and, accolades for her advancement. The woman who was promoting her pulled out the miniature sword while she stood there. And so her friend ran up like, wait, what are you doing? Is this what you have to do in order to get the promotion? And the woman who was about to be promoted, when I tell y'all, she went in on this friend, like they literally got into a physical altercation. And then I woke up. Okay, that's the dream. I know that was a little lengthy, but bear with me because I started seeking the answers like, okay, what could this possibly mean? Now, for many of you, you all know that one of my measures of gaining answers is to look into what's happening energetically surrounding certain things or certain events, okay? That is my gift. That's a part of my gift. And so I utilize that tool. That is my research tool, energy, okay? So I pulled the cards, okay, to see what was going on here. And what I found, y'all, was it blew my mind, okay? So let me just start here. We all know that this particular substance that's being put into people's body is questionable at this time, okay? If you go back and look at my video called The Agenda Behind the Blue Pill, that particular video is me picking up energetically what was happening surrounding, what the agenda is surrounding the miniature swords, okay? And so a lot of information came through there energetically of what's happening. And so when I pulled the cards this time, I kept seeing the King of Pentacles coming out in the reverse and the Queen of Pentacles coming out in the reverse. All Pentacle cards was coming out in the reverse except for one, and that was the Four of Pentacles in the upright. Now, what does that mean? Generally in the Tarot deck, the King of Pentacles and the Queen of Pentacles, anyone that represents Pentacles is generally, if you're trying to find out like what somebody might look like in terms of, okay, if you pull the deck, can you tell me what my spouse might look like? Can you give me a description? Is he Caucasian? Is he, melanated? What does he look like? The Pentacles represents the melanated man and woman. Why? Because Pentacles, Penta, which is five, Pentacles, the symbol, okay, let me just slow down. The symbol of the pentacle represents earth, okay? It represents earth. And so as you all know, earth, if you look at the dirt on the ground, the soil that the earth is, that's within the earth is brown, okay? And so that's why the pentacles represents a darker melanated person when it comes to describing how somebody may look, okay? And so remember in the dream, I kept seeing the inverted or the upside down pentacle, which is associated with Baphomet, or many people might, like the Church of Satan, those types of people tend to use the reversed pentagram as their symbol, okay? And what I was able to come into understanding is penta meaning number five. Penta means five. Number five in spirituality deals with change, okay? It deals with change that leads to growth. And so because they was holding up the pentagram in the reverse, that means that the agenda of the miniature sword was to create a change that led to not growth, but regression. Not growth, but to decompose or to wither or to shrink away. That's what it represented. And so when they was giving the miniature swords and the substance to these people, they was holding that up to represent that they was doing everything anti-nature, okay, against your nature, and also to represent that it was against the nature specifically of the melanated man, woman, and child. Now, in terms of the initial part of my dream, that woman was she resembled this high priestess too much for me to not assume that she was a false high priestess, okay? The so-called powers that were, those who are currently falling from their position of power, recognize that we are now awakening. The original man, woman, and child are now awakening, okay? Why? Because we are in the age of Aquarius. Why? Because we are in the times of revelation, the time of reveal, where things can no longer be hidden, okay? And so the woman in the dream, she knew that my children would be attracted to that particular space. And so that's why she stood there. But she was not actually physically there. And that's why my children was not able to recognize her. They was not able to, they didn't feel her presence there. I was able to see her though, because I'm awakened. My eyes are awakened, right? And so when she had that book and she was holding it out to kind of taunt me, and I pulled at it out of frustration, and she snatched back and I snatched back, it was like a tug of war with the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that is being reawakened within us as our DNA activation continues to, as we continue to evolve as spiritual beings, in these physical vessels, okay? There was a tug of war. The book for me going back and forth was a tug of war of knowledge, okay? And this woman was old. She was old and she was European, which for me represents a number of, a certain period of time that these people have been able to maintain a position of power by withholding knowledge that is rightfully ours, okay? By withholding knowledge that is rightfully within us. What she tried to do was go back and forth with me in hopes that, because she saw my strength. When she saw that I was not backing down in this tug of war with this book, she made herself disappear. Okay? Now I don't know if she was destroyed at that point or if she just vanished on, at her own free will, but she disappeared in that moment. And so this for me is symbolic of the fact that now that we are in the age of Aquarius, we are awakening. Our Akashic records are being restored to us for those of us who are seeking the knowledge, okay, and doing the work to heal and to balance yourself out and to purge those things that do not serve you, releasing yourself from conditioning, releasing yourself from other people's traditions. Because see, in the age of Aquarius, where we are now, we're in the time of revelation, the awakening, coming out of the age of Pisces. The age of Pisces was that receptive energy, because the Pisces symbol is symbolic of the feminine energy, right? And the feminine energy, because the Pisces is a water sign, okay? So the water is the feminine energy. And so that is the receptive energy, okay? Now in the age of Aquarius, that is a air sign. And so we are in a masculine energy, which is more active, okay? And so because we are in this energy of being more active, when your mind awakens, so does your DNA, okay? As within, so without. So when you awaken on a spiritual level, the physical part of you also follows suit. Why? Because typically when you go into that awakening process, you begin to shift your thought process. You begin to shift the way that you perceive yourself, the way that you perceive life, the way that you perceive the Most High, the way that you perceive the universe. You begin to shift your eating patterns. You start to be more conscious of the things that you take into your body, the type of music that you listen to, the type of people that you entertain. You even begin, for many of you who are more evolved in this thing or who are really seeking to evolve, you even withhold your sexual energy from certain people because you understand the importance of preserving your sexual energy so that you're able to redirect that energy towards awakening your creative gifts. Rather than using that creative energy to create a baby, you use that creative energy to create and to awaken your gifts, okay? And to grow and to nurture your gifts within you. And so because of the times that we are in, the enemy is in a tug of war with the knowledge. The enemy does not want us to know who we are. The enemy does not want us to awaken our DNA, to go through the DNA activation, okay? And so in a desperate attempt to stop us, the enemy has come up with a solution using these miniature swords, because they've always used the sword as their measure from the very beginning, okay? But he that liveth by the sword dies by the sword. That I just heard that, okay? He that liveth by the sword dies by the sword. And so these miniature swords, which are needles, okay, they're using this to inject specific solution that directly sends messages to the DNA to communicate a message that is in direct opposition to growth and to awakening and to your nature, okay, as an original being. The inverted pentagram, like I said, for me, because the pentagram stands for the earth, and to be in opposition to that means that it is in direct opposition to those of us who are the original beings of the earth, okay? As a melanated man, woman, and child. And so it was very clear that there's disruption that's happening in the spiritual realm because they are recognizing that those of us who are supposed to awaken and evolve in this time, we are not backing down, and we are becoming so powerful that even like the woman, she went back and forth with me about this book, but I wasn't fighting with her over the book because I felt like she possessed some sort of knowledge that I needed to gain. I was fighting with her over the book because I felt like she was intruding on my space by putting it out in my, in my space while I was trying to walk past. So she was more concerned about the book, thinking that she was taunting me with this knowledge. I was more concerned about the fact that, look, you need to get out of my space because all of the knowledge that I need, I already possess. Your DNA is full of, it's one big library of information. Okay. And so when you begin, now that we're in the age of Aquarius, this is the time, with when the planets shifted and we moved, the planets moved closer to the sun, and we had all of these shifts that have been taking place within the past few years. The sun is actually the light that we need to awaken our DNA. A few different analogies and things kept coming in. I had so much information pouring in that I hope that I'm presenting this message in a way where I'm not all over the place. But if I am, then take what you can and leave the rest. Now, let me see. So I spoke on being in the age of Pisces because we're coming out of the age of Pisces. During that time, the so-called powers that are losing their position of power at this time, they knew that in that energy, in that feminine energy, we will be more receptive to outside influences that came from outside of ourselves, meaning the religious structure, the political structure, and all of these different foundations that they created to keep us from seeking knowledge from them and not going within, recognizing that we have been gifted and blessed with all of this knowledge through our ancestral lineage and through our ancient wisdom, because we've been here since the beginning. Okay? So they suppressed it through fear. They suppressed it through like I said, the fear tactics, through religion, through political structures, through through poverty, through various methods. They suppressed our knowledge to put us in a space of forgetfulness, and they force fed us the watered down version. So I really feel that that woman that was in my dream, who, the high priestess in the tarot deck is the one who possesses the wisdom, the mysteries of the universe, okay? She understands things from a much higher perspective. That is actually the card of the Pisces, which is that, that strong intuitive insight, being able to sense things and to know things. And, you can almost say, some people might say psychic, if you like to use that term. But this woman, this old European woman, was cloaking herself to be something that she was not. And she wanted me to believe that the knowledge that she possessed was something that I needed to be in tug of war over, okay? Much of the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that you're going to come into as you continue down your spiritual path is not going to come from an external source outside of yourself. Not from any specific text, not from any specific person. Now, there's people out here that have been placed in positions to reawaken you, to bring you back into to remembrance, okay? I can say for myself that I've been chosen to be one of those people if you receive these messages, okay? Or you might receive them better from someone else, but either way, you get that nudge from somebody that says, okay, I need you to wake up. Let me show you something here. Once you decide, okay, there's something more to this, you begin to go within to find that knowledge. You begin to do the work and you go into hermit mode. You might have to, like that caterpillar that goes into the cocoon for the transformation, that caterpillar goes in by itself and it stays for a period of time until it is fully transformed into this butterfly that can then fly and reach new heights once it is presented into the world. And so we're in that time, the collective is in that time frame where either you are holding on to the outside influences that was given to you in the age of Pisces, that was passed down from one generation to the next, much largely due to generational curses. They didn't just hand you a watered down version of the truth. They also handed to you generational curses that came with that, okay? Because anytime you go against your nature and you accept something that is in opposition to what your spirit and your soul knows to be true, okay, based on your ancient wisdom, then every part of your thought process works along with that false knowledge, that false wisdom. So if your thoughts are full of falsehood and fallacy, then what happens is even your DNA, on a DNA level, your DNA is actually expressing itself as a result of the false thoughts that you have about yourself, about life, about your position here, about the amount of power that you possess or the lack thereof, about your freedom or the lack thereof. These things, these thoughts that you have, that have been passed down to you, though, because it didn't just begin with you, it was passed down to you from your mother, who may have stayed at a job that she broke her back going there every single day, but was still not able to make ends meet for her children. But she had that beautiful gift of singing that she never utilized because someone told her that that was not a righteous way to live, that you had to punch in somewhere in order to be successful, even though she never met her success. And so through that energy, she was depressed. She was she felt lack mentality. She felt self-loathing. She felt like she was not good enough. She attracted to herself karmic partnerships, and all of these things got passed down to you. But because you was born in a time where the alignments would shift, okay? The Most High knew what was being done and the magnitude of how this would impact us, okay, as these shifts would take place, okay? So let me get back into what I have here in terms of the notes, because I don't want to get too far off. There's so much that's coming in. So I want to get into something that might be a little controversial for some, but I had read about this months back and I took it in and I understood it, but I didn't understand exactly how I would be able to utilize it in terms of expression. And so now I understand, based on my dream, how this all fits. So when we think about the inverted pentagram, I'm going to get back to that. Many people associated with the Baphomet image. I'm sorry, y'all, but I think I tied this thing a little bit too tight. Okay, many people associate that with the Baphomet image. Okay, and that is usually what people see as being Satan. Now, okay, what is Satan? Satan, by definition, would be the opposition, to oppose, the adversary, okay? Someone who is obstructing or anti-Christ, right? Anti-Christ consciousness. That is what Satan would represent. Now, do I see this as being a horned figure with, fire coming out of his face and all of that that's red? No. I see this as being an energy. There are lower level entities as well as so-called humans who operate underneath this energy, okay? The satanic energy. And so in my dream, because the inverted pentagram was in their hand as the brander, to brand someone means to claim it, okay? To define it. So if you become like an alpha, whatever they might call themselves, I don't know anything about sororities, but if you become like an alpha and you brand that on you, that is, you're saying that for life, you want everybody to know that this is who you present yourself to be. You are an alpha for life, and so you are willing to, keloid and all, you're going to take all of that on for the sake of letting the world know that this is what you represent. And so they brought this brander in one hand and this miniature sword in the other hand to represent, this is what I am giving you. And this is what it represents. And I am branding you by giving you this solution. And I am holding this to let you know what it is and what it's going to do. So because the pentagram was reversed, that means because the pentagram stands for earth, it is in opposition to everything that is natural. It is in opposition to everything that allows you to flow in your natural energy and in your own physical, like as far as your physical vessel, your evolutionary process becomes obstructed. Instead of you growing and being able to express your DNA, this now newly awakened DNA, or at least is trying to awaken in the age of Aquarius, if you have fallen for the okie doke, and you've gotten this particular solution put into your body, then this message was to show that you have received something into your physical vessel that is in opposition to your physical growth and the awakening of your DNA, the activation of your DNA. And why is DNA activation so important at this time? Well, because for a long time, the DNA was dormant. For a long time, for generations, the DNA was inactive. Why? Because, again, as within, so without. We begin to accept the false information that was given to us by the enemy in order to keep them in a position of superiority and to keep us in a position of inferiority. Because we actually had our place in the world for since the beginning of time, specifically melanated beings. Gods and goddesses, kings and queens is what we were, sitting on our throne, putting up the pyramids, creating different, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding the, the sciences of the stars and all of these different things. This was no mystery to us, okay? This is why these people, the Roman Catholic Church, was in such great opposition to the Messiah, Yeshua, the black Messiah, Yeshua, who came in to awaken Christ consciousness. Because what he brought was an understanding and level of understanding that was not common. Because there were so many people that had been forced into submission underneath someone else's belief system, the enemy. And so when Christ came in, the enemy recognized him because they had been seeking him out for a long time. They had been anticipating his coming, and that he would come in to be that, to tap people's shoulders and to awaken them to the fact that the kingdom of God is within you. Yes, you possess the kingdom already within you. You possess the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And that's why he said, greater works than me shall ye do. Okay? And so the enemy, if you go back and look at, like I said, that video that I did called The Ritualistic Sacrifice of Christ. Christ was a ritualistic sacrifice is the name of the video. And in that video, it was revealed to me, not through text, not through literature, not through what somebody else said, but it came to me, okay, awakening through my Akashic records, that Christ was actually they used his physical vessel to create curses over his people, okay, who would be considered to be, they call the Israelites, right? The holy people, the people of the light, okay, the people of the sun, because Christ was also known as the Son. So that is the S-U-N as well as the S-O-N. And so they knew that he came in to shine a light that if many people believed him and they actually began to awaken their own powers, that their system and their structure could no longer exist. So they came in, they made a plan, which was to sacrifice him and to steal his identity, bringing forth a European version who also came in to be the sacrifice, or to be, first of all, their God, okay, to be their God, so that whenever we will go in and you close your eyes and you turn in to pray and to make that connection with the source, with the Most High, you picture their God, which many people did, because I was a victim of that for a while, a victim of that for a time, where I would picture a white Christ named Jesus when I would pray. And you couldn't help but do it because for so long, that's what was promoted. That's what was pushed. Even in so-called black churches, they would have, pictures of a white Christ. Why? Because those who taught the religious structure, they all came from the higher ups, who created this false God, was the same ones that would ultimately end up teaching the pastors that were going to teach the melanated man, woman, and child, okay? And so this knowledge, this false knowledge, got passed down from one generation to the next. And not only did they pass down the false illusion of a white Christ, but also fear was passed down through these messages in these traditional religious structures in the age of Pisces. And so, like I said, as within, so without. So whatever you begin to believe, if you are operating from a space of fear and you're thinking that you're supposed to be in poverty, and that poverty means that you are long suffering and you're supposed to be waiting on this white Christ to return, you're supposed to be waiting on someone outside of yourself to return to save you, then you would never end up doing the work. First of all, you would never release yourself from their structure out of fear that if you walk away, you're going to go to hell. Okay. And that you're going to be cast out some kind of way, that you would be ostracized from the heavens, right? And on top of that, you would never turn within to recognize that you possess all of those things within you. You just have to decondition yourself. You have to rewire your mind. You have to reset the way that you see things. Like a total reset has to happen. And many people are afraid of that because along with that type of sacrifice comes many things, many people and places that you have to release and let go of in order to gain such a high level of understanding. Okay? The greater the sacrifice, though, the greater the reward on the other side. And so the enemy was well aware of the fact that we would come into this awakening at this point in time in history. And so when I was speaking on the mark of the beast with the inverted pentagram, the mark of the beast also comes with the number 666, right? That's also spoke about in Revelations. Now, the article that I had stumbled upon almost a year ago was in regards to the 666 being the number of the man, because that's also what it says in the Bible, that it is the number of a man. The number of the man, 666, also means the carbon. What is carbon? Carbon is 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons, carbon 12 specifically. And the body is made up, I believe we have about 90, I think it said 98% of that particular carbon. And then the other carbon 13 is a small percentage. So the carbon 12, which is the 666, the 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons actually makes up a large part of who we are. And when I looked up carbon, what was the origin of the word carbon? It actually means coal. Okay. So coal, which you know is usually dark, right? Because coal is what comes out of like volcanic explosions and what's, seated up underneath the earth. And it's used to, like, let's say, for instance, a diamond. A diamond is coal that's been put under a whole lot of pressure, okay? The process of a diamond being formed is you take the carbon, which is the coal, you take the intense heat, and then you put it under high pressure. So what came to me, how does this fit? Okay, let me make it make sense, okay? The coal, which is black, represents the melanated man, woman, and child. The heat that is necessary to form the diamond represents the sun, S-U-N and S-O-N. The high pressure represents the adversity of the enemy and all of the things that the enemy has done against the melanated man, woman, and child. So when you take all of these things and you put them together, the carbon also representing the DNA, okay, because DNA is largely made up of carbon, the carbon substance, the element of carbon. So the carbon represents the DNA. Then you have that intense heat, which is the sun, keeping in mind that we are now closer in proximity. The earth is now closer in proximity to the sun. And so now the sun is doing greater work on our DNA activation. Why? Because we're also in the age of Aquarius, which is the air sign. And so as the air sign, what does air mean? Air is wind. And anytime you add wind with fire, which is the sun, then it intensifies it heightens the intensity of that flame, okay? Anytime you add air with fire, okay? And so we have the carbon, which will represent the melanated man, woman, and child, and also the DNA that exists within you. With the intensity of this heat from the sun, as well as SON, which is Christ consciousness awakening within you, okay? Plus the high pressure of the adversity. So many of you who have come into this awakening in the age of Aquarius, I've had a lot of people report to me, especially, from my own personal experience within the past few years, 5 years especially, there has been a lot of upheavals, a lot of changes, a lot of chaos that has taken place in people's lives where they're, having to make very vital decisions. They're having to release themselves from certain belief systems. They're having to go into, their hermit mode where they're losing a lot of friends and family members. They're having to walk away from a lot of people as they go through this transformative process. But that's that chaotic energy, which is the high pressure that coal has to go through alongside that intense heat, which is from the sun and the Christ consciousness that is awakening within you. But what comes out of that? What comes out of that is a diamond. And that diamond is representation of your awakened DNA. Because keep in mind that the same substance that is within the diamond is also within your actual physical vessel. They say that it is actually that it came from the Big Bang Theory, that we have stardust within us, within our vessels. At least I think they mentioned about 12% of stardust that is within our vessels. And so consider that the diamonds, sometimes they compare them. They say shine bright like a diamond, just like a star would shine bright, okay? So what's happening is the enemy recognizes what is happening with us on a spiritual level, on a soul level, and more on the surface on a DNA level. Your DNA is a library of information that goes way back to the beginning of time from your very first ancestor, okay? And all of this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding is becoming readily accessible to you if you do the work to allow the transformative process to take place. And so the ultimate goal of the enemy at this time is to give you a solution using this miniature sword to reverse that, to be anti-growth, anti-evolution, anti your nature, so that you go backwards, so that that so-called dormant DNA, that so-called junk DNA, which they say it's about I believe they say it's over 90%, maybe 98% of DNA. They say it's junk DNA. That junk DNA that they call it is not junk at all. It is actually the DNA that is going to be awakened, that is awakening within those of you who are doing the work and going with the flow of the process and allowing yourself to go through the transformations. And so you find yourself coming into remembrance. I find myself having these vivid dreams that's giving me all of this knowledge and information, to the point where I can't ignore it. I have to bring it to you all because I know that there's some very vital messages that's within this, okay? So, this says approximately 12% of the human body is comprised of carbon. It is speculated that the hydrogen atoms were formed as a result of the Big Bang Theory, okay? That these hydrogen atoms were formed as a result of the Big Bang Theory. So if we have at least 12% of the human body being comprised of the carbon, of the element carbon, then recognize that the likelihood of that carbon turning into a diamond, which is highly valuable, which is light, okay? It is the reflection of light. That's why diamonds are so valuable. The more it's able to reflect the light, the more clarity that it has, okay, the more value it possesses. But we possess the true diamonds because we are the true light, okay? And so that is a large part of that light from within you shining and emanating. And I feel, if you pay attention to people who are awakening, you see that they begin to change, like visibly. I can see when I go back and look at some of my older videos, I can see that I have visibly changed in terms of the way that I glow. And that's not being vain, that's just me taking a note. That's me taking notice of the transformation that is happening as within, so without, okay? And so because this is such a vital time for for humanity as a whole, the head becoming the tail and the tail becoming the head, these people are using desperate measures. They've been planning this for a long time now, okay? The biblical text, because you'll say, well, the Bible predicted that this would happen, but making and understanding that, bearing in mind that the biblical text was written by the scribes and Pharisees of the Roman Catholic Church, they had a large hand in translating, okay? I'm not going to say they wrote the whole thing. They had a large hand in translating the information that was within that particular text, okay? And so They translated it, but they removed much of it. They added much of it, okay? Because you know that there's many books that are not included in the Bible that you would get from your store today. That particular book, if you was ever to find a Bible that included everything from the very beginning of its original text, you would probably have to pay over $1 million for it. They have that hidden away and locked away in specific places, probably with the Vatican and these different types of people who have direct access to the truth, but they use it to their advantage and to your disadvantage, and they feed you with the lies. So that, again, as long as you believe the lies, your DNA expresses itself through inauthenticity. It expresses itself through lies, okay? And so it affects you in so many ways. And it has been a large tool that has been used for these people, and it worked for a time. But now that we are here in the age of Aquarius, those of you who are supposed to awaken are awakening, and you're going to be able to see this. So what? Let me see what else I have here before I close out. Oh, speaking of the coal, I want to get back into that. So we did speak of the mark of the beast being the number of a man, which is 666, being broken down as the 6 protons, the 6 neutrons, and the 6 electrons. Okay, so that is what carbon is made up of, which is a large part of what we are comprised of, but also considering that carbon, the origin of the word is coal, which is dark, okay, which is black, right? It also means black. And so it made me think of the scripture, Revelation 1 and 15, where it speaks on, this is what it says, and his feet, they was describing Yeshua, not Jesus. They was describing Yeshua in this particular scripture. And his feet like unto fine brass, as if it were burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. And he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. Okay, and then I jump down to verse 20, which says the 7 candlesticks are the 7 churches. Now, why is this relevant? Because first of all, it's speaking on the Messiah, the Christ, would be dark skin in color, right? And his feet like unto fine brass, as if it was burnt in a furnace. Obviously, brass is my complexion, okay? Or the longer you burn brass, the darker it gets. So it's my complexion, darker, maybe a few shades lighter, depending on how long you burn the brass, okay? But like unto fine brass, as if it was burnt in the furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. Now, I mentioned to you, what does water represent? Water represents emotions, okay? Water represents that intuitive wisdom, that connection that you have with your intuition, and that the mysteries of the universe, okay? That feminine energy that allows you to tap in. So his voice was the sound of many waters, which means that he had much wisdom. Okay, and so when he expressed himself, or those who are in Christ consciousness, because I feel like this is not just speaking on the Christ Yeshua that came, but also this is speaking on those of us who would awaken into our Christ consciousness, that when we speak from a space of wisdom, ancient wisdom, the sound of many waters, okay? And then it says, in his right hand, 7 stars. Now, I've spoken to you all in many different videos. I'll bring up like the chakras, okay? There are 7 chakras that we have that, 7 main chakras that we have, okay? And those particular chakras, when they are out of alignment, they generally go in a clockwise motion. But if they are counterclockwise, and that is counterproductive in terms of the way that they operate in your system, okay? So keeping in mind that everything that the enemy has done was to make everything go counter, okay? Not with the circle of life, but in opposition to the circle of life, okay? And so these particular energetic vortexes that we possess, these 7 chakras, as we continue to do the work to awaken and awakening that Christ consciousness, and awakening that DNA activation and gaining access to that Akashic records that has been there, these chakras, they have a certain light that they emanate, okay? And so that 7 stars that was in his right hand, I feel is largely symbolic of the is largely symbolic of the um the chakras, okay? And when I it just came to me in terms of the right hand, anytime you're doing something with the right side of your body, is actually functioning from the left side of the brain. And I want to make sure that I'm not off with this, but I believe the left side of the brain is the more um like in terms of the detailed things that you need to do in life, okay? um and then the right side of the brain is more of the creative energy. I hope I'm not off here, but I believe so. So I feel like the 7 candlesticks being in the right hand specifically, because obviously they mentioned it for a reason, um, would represent that side of your brain that was less conscious of what is happening on a higher level. Because if the right side is the creative side of the brain, then that's the side that is limitless. That is the side that has that expansive imagination where you don't limit yourself based on conditioning, okay? That's that inner child that's able to just envision and imagine and create. That's your creative side. So if it's the left hand that is holding the 7 candlesticks, I feel that would be a representation that the right hand is holding the candlesticks. That would be a representation that the left side of the brain is actually coming into balance with the this information, okay, this wealth of information that it has suppressed, trying to stay in survival mode, okay, staying in survival mode and just being more focused on those things that are within the matrix. But because it's in the right hand, I feel like there was some sort of connection with both sides of the brain, or your consciousness came into balance, masculine and feminine energy. Because I do believe that the right and the left side also have a direct connection with masculine and feminine. Um, and so balancing out the two with the activation of the 7 chakras, which allows you to see things from a clear perspective, from a holistic perspective, okay? And not just thinking that it's fallacy coming from your own imagination, but being able to connect this with what's happening in your daily lives and using it as a tool to strengthen and empower you and to take you out of survival mode and into the energy of thriving. So this is what the enemy wanted to do. And lastly, I wanted to mention when it speaks on his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. As you all know, many of the photos of the false Christ, Jesus, the European image, they always have like a sun behind his head, okay? A halo, which usually looks like the sun behind his head, which represents that they understand that this is not just they understood that the planetary shifts that would take place and us being closer to the sun, being that we are children of the sun as melanated man, women, and children, that not only would Christ consciousness arise within us, but that the sun would work in our favor and against them to a large degree, okay? But it would work in our favor to the degree where we would have a strong potential to activate that so-called junk and dormant DNA that would give us access to many of these powers and that awakening and that evolution that we need. And so with his countenance being as the sun shineth, it says his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. So knowing that the sun would be a large part of our power source, okay? It is the power source of our solar system. And so it's definitely the power source of our soul, okay? So I know that every word has a meaning behind a meaning behind a meaning, okay? And so it's no coincidence that sun, S-O-N, and sun, S-U-N, are spoken the same way, okay? Many of the things that was placed into the biblical text were prior to that, they was already written from other texts. Much of the information was stolen, okay? If you go back, much further than the biblical text, and it was rewritten, restructured to fit a false god. And so I hope that this message was able to bring some clarity to you all in regards to what this whole DNA activation is all about and why the enemy is in such scrambles, or in such, he's just pressed to use whatever tools or tactics that he could think of to reverse or to suppress our awakening. But we will not stand for it. And our awakening, once you begin to see, then you take action and you continue to allow yourself to go through the transformation. No matter how many changes you have to go through, you know that chaos brings change, and change is necessary for growth. And so just know that you are a diamond. That is naturally who you are. It is within your DNA. Okay, you are more valuable than any diamond that exists, and this is why the melanin is, something that's being sold is actually more valuable than gold. They're actually selling melanin now. Okay, and so these people have always had an understanding of the value that we possess, but we forgot the value that we possessed under conditioning and fear and, all of the many tragedies that we had to go through. But now it's time to awaken to the fact that you are a god, you are a goddess, you are a king, you are a queen, and it is our time to take our positions, to restructure and to rebalance the energy of the universe. And we will not allow someone who is afraid of, losing their position, someone who does not want to release their so-called position of power. Your time is up. It's time for you to take a back seat, okay, to receive whatever karmic lessons need to come in on their behalf, because we are calling on the highest form of righteous judgment, the highest form of justice to balance this thing out. And it's not just, I'm not just speaking on the European, even though the European is the one that sits in that position, okay? Not all of them have that agenda, but what I'm saying is the way that my dream came to me, there is a strong agenda, and it doesn't have to come from my dream. It's very evident in history, okay? It's been very evident for a long time. So, this is not a debate, but my dream just verified that this is a strong agenda against specifically the melanated man, woman, and child, but they will not win, okay? They will not win. And so continue to do the work, and continue to go within to get those answers. And thank you all for sticking it out with me, for those of you who was able to make it through the end of this video. And I will definitely talk to you all next time. Email me if you want a private reading. Thank you for the donations, and thank you for the likes and the subscribes. Y'all take care.